Hi everyone, I am new to YouTube and would like to ask you to support me by liking and subscribing to the channel. Also write in the comments from which country you are watching me. Everyone enjoy watching. Here are simple stories at an A2 and B1 English level. The Secret Tunnel. Tom was a curious boy who loved to explore. One sunny afternoon, he went to the old forest near his village. His friends always said, "Don't go there. It's dangerous." But Tom was not afraid. As he walked through the forest, he saw something strange. Under some big rocks, there was a small, dark hole. Tom knelt down and looked inside. The hole was bigger than it seemed. It looked like a tunnel. "What's in there?" Tom whispered to himself. He found a stick and a flashlight in his bag. Carefully, he climbed into the hole. Inside, the tunnel was cold and quiet. The walls were made of stone, and the air smelled old. Tom walked for a few minutes when suddenly, he saw something shiny on the ground. It was a gold coin. A treasure? Tom's eyes grew wide. He picked up the coin and put it in his pocket. He kept walking. The tunnel opened into a large underground room. In the middle of the room, there was a wooden chest. Tom's heart was beating fast. He opened the chest slowly. Inside, he found more gold coins, silver jewelry, and a small book. The book had strange writing and pictures of maps. "This is amazing," Tom said. But then, he heard a noise, footsteps. Tom turned off his flashlight and hid behind the chest. Two men entered the room. They were tall and looked angry. "Where is the book?" one man asked. Tom's hands shook, but he held the book tightly. He had to escape. He remembered the tunnel and quietly crawled back to it. When the men looked away, Tom ran as fast as he could. He didn't stop running until he was out of the forest. At home, Tom showed the book to his grandfather. His grandfather's eyes lit up. "This is the Book of Explorers," he said. "It shows the locations of lost treasures." From that day, Tom and his grandfather started a new adventure, finding the treasures from the maps. Tom smiled. He was not just a curious boy anymore. He was now a treasure hunter. The end. The next story, The Midnight Escape. Emma loved her small village, but she always dreamed of adventure. Every night, she looked out of her bedroom window at the tall mountain far away. People in the village said the mountain was cursed, but Emma didn't believe them. One night, while the village was quiet, Emma heard a loud noise outside. It sounded like a horse running fast. She looked out and saw a black horse with a silver saddle. No one was riding it. Curious, Emma put on her coat and ran outside. The horse stopped in front of her and neighed softly, as if it wanted her to follow. "This is strange," Emma whispered, but her heart raced with excitement. She climbed onto the horse, and it galloped toward the mountain. The wind was cold, and the stars lit the way. Emma held on tight as the horse ran faster and faster. When they reached the mountain, the horse stopped in front of a cave. Emma slid off and looked around. The entrance to the cave glowed with a soft, golden light. "What is this place?" Emma asked. Inside the cave, she found a stone table with an old map on it. The map showed the mountain and a path leading to a hidden treasure. Before Emma could take the map, she heard a deep voice. "Who dares to enter my cave?" Emma turned around and saw a tall figure in a dark cloak. His eyes glowed like fire. I'm just curious," Emma said, her voice shaking. The figure laughed. "Curiosity is dangerous here. But I will give you a choice. Solve my riddle, and you can take the map. Fail, and you must leave forever." Emma nodded nervously. The figure said, "I speak without a mouth. I hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with wind. What am I?" Emma thought hard. The cave was silent except for the sound of her heartbeat. Then, she smiled, an echo, she said. The figure clapped his hands. You are clever. Take the map, and may your courage guide you. Emma grabbed the map and ran outside. The black horse was waiting for her. She jumped on its back, and it carried her home. From that night on, Emma became a legend in the village. She used the map to explore new lands, find treasures, and prove that adventure was worth the risk. The end. The next story, The Mystery of Ravenwood Mansion. Ravenwood was a small town surrounded by dark forests and misty hills. At the edge of the town stood an old mansion, Ravenwood Mansion. Everyone in the town whispered about it, saying it was haunted. Nobody dared to go near it, especially at night. Sophie, a brave 14-year-old girl, loved mysteries. She had big blue eyes and curly brown hair. She lived with her grandmother, who often warned her, "Stay away from Ravenwood Mansion. Strange things happen there." But Sophie's curiosity was stronger than her fear. One bright Saturday morning, Sophie's best friends, Liam and Mia, came to visit her. Liam was tall and always made jokes, while Mia was quiet and loved to draw. Sophie showed them a newspaper she found in her grandmother's attic. The headline read, "Ravenwood Mansion, the disappearance of Mr. Edgar Black." "Who is Mr. Edgar Black?" Mia asked. Sophie pointed to the article. "He owned the mansion 50 years ago. One day, he disappeared, and nobody ever found him. Some people think his ghost is still there." Liam laughed nervously. "Ghosts? That's just a story." Sophie smiled. "Let's find out. Let's go to the mansion." Mia hesitated. "Are you sure? What if something bad happens?" "Nothing will happen," Sophie said confidently. "We'll go during the day. Bring flashlights and snacks. It will be an adventure." The three friends packed their bags and walked to the mansion. The iron gates were rusty, and the garden was overgrown with weeds. The mansion's windows were broken, and the door was slightly open, creaking in the wind. "Creepy," Liam whispered. Sophie pushed the door open, and they stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and old wood. The floor creaked under their feet. A large staircase stood in the center, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling. "Look at this," Mia said, pointing to a painting on the wall. It was a portrait of a man with a stern face and a black suit. Below the painting was a brass plaque that read, "Mr. Edgar Black, 1925. "That's him," Sophie said. "Let's check the rooms." They explored the mansion room by room. Most of the rooms were empty. But one had an old piano covered in dust. Mia pressed a key, and a low, eerie note echoed through the house. Suddenly, they heard a noise upstairs. "What was that?" Liam asked, his voice shaking. "Let's find out," Sophie said. Grabbing her flashlight, they climbed the stairs slowly. At the end of the hallway was a door with strange markings. Sophie pushed it open. Inside, they found a small library with shelves full of old books. In the center of the room was a desk with papers scattered across it. "Look at this," Mia said, picking up a notebook. It was full of Mr. Black's handwriting. One page had a strange drawing of a key and a map. A hidden treasure? Liam guessed, maybe. Sophie said, "Let's follow the map." The map led them to the basement. The stairs creaked as they went down, and the air grew colder. The basement was dark and filled with old furniture and boxes. In the corner, they found a large chest with a rusty lock. "This must be it," Sophie said, holding up the key from the notebook. She turned the key in the lock, and the chest creaked open. Inside, they found stacks of old papers, a leather journal, and a small wooden box. Sophie opened the journal and read aloud, "To whoever finds this, my name is Edgar Black. I am not dead, but I had to disappear. There were people after me who wanted my secrets. I leave this message to tell the truth." The friends exchanged surprised looks. "He wasn't a ghost after all," Mia said. "What's in the wooden box?" Liam asked. Sophie opened it and found a collection of strange coins and a locket with a picture of a woman. The back of the locket was engraved with the words, "For my love, Eleanor." "Maybe this is why he disappeared," Sophie said. "To protect someone he loved." As they were leaving the basement, they heard a loud crash upstairs. They ran back up and saw the front door swinging open. The wind had blown it shut behind them. "Let's get out of here," Mia said, and they all agreed. Back at Sophie's house, they carefully packed the journal, coins, and locket in a box. They decided to give it to the local museum so the town could learn the truth about Mr. Edgar Black. From that day on, the friends were known as the brave explorers of Ravenwood Mansion. And while the mystery of Edgar Black's disappearance was solved, Sophie couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the world was hiding, waiting for her to discover. The end. The next story, The Treasure of Sunken Island. It was a warm summer morning in the small seaside village of Clearwater. The waves crashed softly against the shore, and the air smelled of salt and seaweed. Alex, a curious 15-year-old, was sitting on the dock, staring out at the horizon. His best friend Emma ran up to him, holding an old, crumpled map. "Look what I found in my grandfather's attic," Emma exclaimed. Her short red hair danced in the wind as she held the map out to Alex. Alex unfolded the map carefully. It was yellow with age and had strange markings on it. At the top, in faded letters, it read, "The Treasure of Sunken Island. Do you think it's real?" Alex asked, his blue eyes wide with excitement. "My grandfather always told me stories about a hidden treasure near Clearwater," Emma said. "Maybe this is it." The map showed a small island a few miles off the coast, with a dotted line leading to a large X. Neither of them had heard of the island before, but the idea of finding treasure was too exciting to ignore. "Let's go tomorrow," Alex said. "We can borrow my uncle's boat." The next morning, Alex and Emma packed supplies, sandwiches, water, a flashlight, and a small shovel. They borrowed the boat and set off toward the mysterious island. The sea sparkled under the sun, and gulls flew above them, calling out loudly. After about an hour, they saw it, a tiny island with rocky cliffs and a patch of sandy beach. "There it is," Emma said, pointing. They anchored the boat and waded to the shore. The island was quiet except for the sound of waves and the rustling of palm trees. They pulled out the map and followed the dotted line, which led them into a dense forest. "Stay close," Alex said, holding back branches as they walked. In the middle of the forest, they found an old stone statue of a sailor. Its face was weathered, and one hand pointed toward a large boulder. "The map says we're close," Emma said. She traced the path with her finger. "The treasure should be buried near that boulder." They started digging next to the boulder. After a few minutes, Emma's shovel hit something hard. "I found it," she shouted. Together, they dug until they uncovered a wooden chest. It was old and covered in moss. Alex used a rock to break the rusty lock. When they opened the chest, their eyes widened. Inside were gold coins, sparkling jewels, and a small leather book. "It's real," Alex whispered. Emma picked up the book and opened it. The pages were filled with drawings and notes about the treasure. "This must be from the person who hid it," she said. "Look, there's a name, Captain Elias Drake." Suddenly, they heard a rustling noise behind them. They turned around and saw two men stepping out from the trees. They were tall and rough-looking, with scruffy beards and old clothes. Well, one of the men said. "Looks like you kids found our treasure." "Your treasure?" Emma said, stepping back. The other man laughed. "We've been looking for that chest for years." "Hand it over." Alex and Emma exchanged nervous looks. Then Alex had an idea. He grabbed the leather book and whispered to Emma, "Follow me." They both ran as fast as they could, clutching the book and leaving the chest behind. The men shouted and chased after them. Alex and Emma ran through the forest, dodging trees and jumping over roots. Finally, they reached the beach, to the boat. Alex yelled. They pushed the boat into the water and jumped in. The men were close behind, but the boat was faster. Alex started the motor, and they sped away, leaving the men shouting angrily on the shore. When they were far enough from the island, Emma opened the book again. "This book is more valuable than the treasure," she said. "It's full of information about Captain Drake and other treasures he hid." "We'll take it to the museum," Alex said. "They can keep it safe and share the history with everyone." Back in Clearwater, the museum's director was amazed by the book. "This is an incredible discovery," she said. "You two have done something amazing." Alex and Emma became local heroes. Though they left the gold and jewels behind, they knew they had found something even better, a piece of history and an adventure they would never forget. The end. The next story, The Forgotten Train. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, there was an old legend about a missing train. The story went that a passenger train, the Silver Arrow, disappeared one foggy night over 50 years ago. Some said it crashed in the forest, others believed it vanished into thin air. The mystery was never solved. Sophia, a curious 14-year-old girl with a love for solving puzzles, had heard the story many times. Her grandfather often told her, "The Silver Arrow is out there somewhere, waiting to be found." Sophia loved her grandfather's stories, but she wanted to know the truth. One summer afternoon, while cleaning her attic, Sophia found an old notebook. It was dusty and smelled of age. Inside, she saw sketches of the Silver Arrow, maps of the surrounding forests, and notes written in her grandfather's handwriting. Could he have been searching for the train? Sophia wondered. She took the notebook to her best friends, Leo and Mia. Leo was adventurous and loved exploring, while Mia was shy but incredibly smart. "This is amazing," Leo said, flipping through the pages. "Let's find the Silver Arrow." Mia hesitated. "What if it's just a story? What if we get lost?" "We'll be careful," Sophia said. "And we'll bring supplies." The three friends packed backpacks with water, snacks, flashlights, and a compass. They followed the map, which led them deep into the forest. The air was cool, and the trees were tall and thick, blocking most of the sunlight. Birds chirped, and the sound of leaves crunching underfoot filled the silence. "According to the map, the train should be near the old bridge," Sophia said, pointing to a spot on the map. After hours of walking, they reached the bridge. It was broken and covered in vines. Below it was a dry riverbed. Nearby, they saw rusted metal pieces scattered on the ground. "Look at this," Leo said, picking up a metal plate. It had the letters SA engraved on it. "Silver Arrow," Mia whispered. "We're close." They followed the trail of metal pieces deeper into the forest until they saw something through the trees. It was the Silver Arrow. The train was lying on its side, covered in moss and plants. The windows were broken, and the paint was faded, but it was still beautiful. "We found it," Sophia said, her voice full of wonder. They climbed inside the train. The seats were torn, and cobwebs hung in the corners. In the conductor's cabin, they found an old journal. It was weathered but still readable. Sophia opened it and read aloud. The fog was too thick. "We couldn't see the bridge. The train derailed, but everyone survived. We left to find help, but we could never return." "They survived," Leo said. "But why didn't they come back?" "Maybe they couldn't find the train again," Mia said. "Or they didn't want to." As they explored further, they found a small metal box hidden under a seat. Inside were photographs, coins, and a silver pocket watch. The photographs showed passengers smiling and laughing on the train. "We should take this to the town museum," Sophia said. "People need to know what happened." As they left the train, the sun began to set, and the forest grew darker. They used their flashlights to find their way back to the town. When they arrived, they went straight to the museum and told the curator about their discovery. The curator was amazed. "This is an incredible find," she said. "The story of the Silver Arrow has been part of our town for generations. Thank you for bringing this to us." The photographs, journal, and pocket watch were displayed in the museum, and the story of the Silver Arrow became even more famous. Sophia, Leo, and Mia were proud of their adventure. They had solved a mystery that had puzzled the town for years, but as Sophia lay in bed that night, she couldn't help but wonder what else was waiting to be discovered in the forests of Willow Creek. The end. The next story, The Enchanted Library, in the bustling city of Silver Lake, hidden between two tall buildings, was an old library that most people ignored. The bricks were faded, and the wooden door creaked loudly when pushed. But for Elena, a 13-year-old bookworm, the library was her favorite place in the world. One rainy afternoon, Elena was sitting in her usual corner, surrounded by piles of books. The librarian, Mr. Whitaker, a kind old man with round glasses, came up to her and whispered, "You've read almost every book in here, haven't you?" Elena smiled. "I think so. But I'll read them all again if I have to." Mr. Whitaker chuckled. "How about I show you something special?" Curious, Elena followed him to the back of the library, where there was a small wooden door she had never noticed before. Mr. Whitaker took out a golden key and unlocked it. "What's in there?" Elena asked, her heart racing. "You'll see," Mr. Whitaker said with a wink. The door opened to reveal a spiral staircase that led down into the ground. A soft glow came from below, and Elena felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. "Go on," Mr. Whitaker said. "This is a place for someone with your love of stories." Elena stepped carefully down the stairs. As she reached the bottom, she gasped. The room was enormous, with walls covered in bookshelves that reached up to the ceiling. Floating candles lit the space, and in the middle of the room was a large, round table with an open book that seemed to glow. She approached the table and looked at the book. The pages were blank, but as she touched them, words began to appear. The title read, "The Keeper of Tales." "What is this place?" Elena whispered to herself. "It's the Enchanted Library," said a voice behind her. She turned to see a young boy, about her age, with messy black hair and a mischievous grin. "I'm Max. I've been coming here for years. How come I've never seen you?" Elena asked. Max shrugged. "Not everyone can find this place. Only those who truly love stories." Elena smiled. "Then why is the book glowing?" Max's eyes sparkled. "That's the best part. This book creates adventures. All you have to do is write the first sentence." Elena picked up the golden pen lying next to the book. She hesitated for a moment, then wrote. Elena and Max stepped into a magical forest filled with glowing flowers and strange creatures. The moment she finished the sentence, the room around them changed. Suddenly, they were standing in a vibrant forest. The trees were tall and twisted, their leaves glowing softly in shades of blue and green. Strange creatures, like rabbits with wings and tiny dragons, darted around them. "It worked!" Elena exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. "Of course it did," Max said. "But be careful. Adventures can be dangerous too." As they walked through the forest, they heard a low growl. A large, wolf-like creature with glowing red eyes stepped out from behind a tree. It bared its sharp teeth and growled at them. "Run." Max shouted, grabbing Elena's hand. They sprinted through the forest, dodging trees and jumping over roots. The creature chased them, its heavy footsteps growing louder. Suddenly, they came to a river with a rickety wooden bridge. "We have to cross," Elena said. They carefully stepped onto the bridge, but halfway across, the creature leaped onto it, causing it to shake violently. Elena had an idea. She turned and shouted, "Go back. You're not real. You're just a story." To her surprise, the creature stopped. It tilted its head, then slowly faded into thin air. "How did you know that would work?" Max asked, breathing heavily. Elena shrugged. "I just guessed." When they reached the other side of the river, the glowing book appeared in front of them, floating in the air. "Time to go back," Max said. Elena touched the book, and in an instant, they were back in the enchanted library. "That was incredible," Elena said, her heart still racing. Max nodded. "The library will always create new adventures for you. But remember, you have to be brave and smart to make it through." From that day on, Elena spent every free moment in the enchanted library, creating and living out stories she had always dreamed of. And though the adventures were sometimes scary, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be, in a world of endless possibilities. The end. The next story, The Clockmaker's Secret. In the quaint village of Ravens Hollow, there was an old clock shop owned by Mr. Hugo, a mysterious man who always wore a dark coat and a silver pocket watch. His shop was filled with clocks of all shapes and sizes, their ticking creating a rhythmic symphony that echoed through the narrow streets. But Mr. Hugo's most prized possession was a large, golden grandfather clock in the corner of his shop. It was said to be over 300 years old and had never once stopped ticking. Toby, a curious 12-year-old boy, lived just down the street from the shop. He often passed by, peeking through the dusty windows to watch Mr. Hugo work on his clocks. One rainy evening, as Toby was walking home, he noticed the shop's door slightly ajar. The sign that usually read "Closed" was turned around, now saying "Come in." Toby hesitated but couldn't resist the chance to explore. He stepped inside, the door creaking loudly behind him. The air smelled of wood polish and metal. Clocks ticked and chimed, filling the room with an enchanting melody. "Ah, young Toby," said a deep voice. Toby jumped and turned to see Mr. Hugo standing by the golden grandfather clock. "I've been expecting you." "Me?" Toby asked, confused. "How do you know my name?" Mr. Hugo smiled mysteriously. "I know many things. And tonight, you will learn a secret that few have ever discovered." Before Toby could respond, Mr. Hugo opened the glass door of the grandfather clock. Instead of gears and pendulums, Toby saw a swirling vortex of light. It shimmered like 1,000 stars trapped in a whirlwind. "What is that?" Toby whispered, his eyes wide. "It's a gateway," Mr. Hugo said. "This clock doesn't just tell time, it travels through it. Would you like to see?" Toby's heart raced. He wanted to say no, to run back home, but his curiosity got the better of him. "Okay," he said, his voice trembling. Mr. Hugo extended his hand. Toby took it, and together they stepped into the vortex. The world around them spun faster and faster until it stopped abruptly. They were no longer in the clock shop. Instead, they stood in the middle of a bustling market square. "Where are we?" Toby asked. "Not where, young man," Mr. Hugo said with a grin. "When? This is Ravens Hollow, 200 years ago." Toby looked around in amazement. The streets were filled with horse-drawn carriages, and people wore old-fashioned clothes. Children played with wooden toys, and merchants shouted about their wares. It was like stepping into a history book. As they walked through the square, Toby noticed something strange. A man in a dark cloak was watching them from the shadows. "Who is that?" he asked, pointing. Mr. Hugo's face darkened. That's Magnus. He used to be my apprentice, but he wanted to use the clock's power for selfish reasons. Be careful. He's dangerous. Magnus began to follow them, his eyes fixed on the silver pocket watch hanging from Mr. Hugo's coat. He wants the watch, doesn't he? Toby asked. Mr. Hugo nodded. The watch controls the clock. Without it, Magnus can't travel through time. Suddenly, Magnus lunged at them. Mr. Hugo pushed Toby aside, shouting, "Run!" Toby ran as fast as he could, weaving through the crowded market. He could hear Magnus and Mr. Hugo struggling behind him. Toby spotted an alley and ducked into it. He waited, his heart pounding. After a few moments, Mr. Hugo appeared, holding the pocket watch tightly. Did you stop him? Toby asked. Mr. Hugo nodded. For now. But we must return to the clock. It's not safe here. They hurried back to the vortex, Magnus' angry shouts echoing behind them. Once inside the vortex, the spinning light carried them back to the shop. The moment they stepped out, Mr. Hugo closed the glass door and locked it with the silver pocket watch. That was incredible, Toby said, his voice full of awe. But why did you show me this? Mr. Hugo placed a hand on Toby's shoulder. Because I'm getting old, and someone needs to protect the clock. Someone brave and curious, like you. Toby's eyes widened. You mean me? Mr. Hugo smiled. Yes. But only if you're ready for the responsibility. The clock is a powerful tool, but it must never be misused. Toby nodded. I'll do it. I promise. From that day on, Toby became the apprentice of Mr. Hugo. He learned the secrets of the clock and the responsibilities that came with it. And though he sometimes missed the simple life of a regular boy, he knew he had been chosen for something extraordinary. The golden grandfather clock continued to tick, its secret safe in the hands of its new protector. The end. The next story, The Hidden Island. Lila had always lived by the sea. Her house stood on the edge of the cliffs, where the waves crashed loudly below. Every morning, she would walk along the shore, collecting seashells and listening to the cries of seagulls. But Lila had a secret dream. She wanted to find the hidden island, a place whispered about in her small fishing village. Legends said it appeared only once every 10 years, covered in gold and guarded by magical creatures. One summer morning, as Lila was exploring a tide pool, she found something unusual. It was a small, golden compass. Its needle didn't point north, but instead spun wildly before settling in one direction. Lila's heart raced. She had read stories about magical compasses that could guide people to the hidden island. Could this be it? She whispered to herself. Lila hurried back to her house, clutching the compass tightly. She packed a small bag with food, water, and her journal. Then, without telling anyone, she set out to follow the compass. The needle led her to the village's harbor, where her father's old rowboat lay unused. She pushed the boat into the water and began rowing, the compass balanced on her knee. The sea was calm at first, but as she ventured farther from the shore, the waves grew larger, and dark clouds gathered in the sky. Lila's arms ached from rowing, but she didn't stop. She was determined to reach the island. Hours later, as the sun began to set, she saw something on the horizon. It was faint, but there, rising from the water, was an island surrounded by a golden mist. Lila's excitement gave her the strength to row faster. As she approached, the mist cleared, revealing a lush jungle and sandy beaches that sparkled as if sprinkled with gold dust. Lila pulled her boat onto the shore and stepped onto the sand. The air smelled sweet, like flowers and honey. She looked around and noticed a path leading into the jungle. Taking a deep breath, she followed it, the jungle was alive with strange sounds. Birds with colorful feathers sang unfamiliar songs, and small, glowing creatures darted between the trees. As Lila walked, she felt as though the island was watching her. The compass in her hand began to spin again, guiding her deeper into the jungle. Suddenly, she came to a clearing where a large stone statue stood. It was shaped like a lion with wings, and its eyes glowed softly. As Lila stepped closer, the statue's mouth moved. "Who dares enter the hidden island?" It asked in a deep, rumbling voice. Lila froze, but then gathered her courage. "I'm Lila. I followed the compass here." The statue's eyes narrowed. "The compass chooses only the brave and pure of heart. To stay on this island, you must prove yourself. Solve this riddle, and you may continue." Lila nodded, her heart pounding. The statue spoke the riddle. "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with the wind." What am I? Lila thought hard. She closed her eyes and listened to the sounds around her, the rustling leaves, the singing birds, and the gentle breeze. Then she smiled. "An echo," she said confidently. The statue's eyes glowed brighter. "You are correct. You may pass." The path beyond the statue led to the heart of the island, where a massive tree stood. Its trunk was golden, and its branches sparkled with gemstones. At its base was a small chest. Lila approached it carefully and opened it. Inside, she found a map, a key, and a note. The note read, "The true treasure of the hidden island is not gold but knowledge and adventure. Use this map to explore the world, and let the key open doors to new possibilities." Lila smiled. She realized that the legends of the island's gold were only part of the story. The real treasure was the experience and the courage it took to find it. She spent the night on the island, marveling at its beauty. When the sun rose, she used the compass to guide her back to her village. As she rode home, she felt different, stronger, braver, and ready for whatever adventure came next. From that day on, Lila became known as the girl who had found the hidden island. She kept the map and key close, waiting for the day she would use them to explore the world and discover more secrets. And though the island disappeared back into the mist, Lila knew it was always there, waiting for the next brave soul to find it. The end. The next story, The Silver Key. In the quiet town of Willow Spring, 14-year-old Clara lived in a small, cozy house with her grandmother. The two of them shared a love for mysteries and puzzles, often spending evenings solving riddles and reading adventure books. But Clara never imagined she would stumble upon a mystery of her own. One sunny afternoon, Clara was helping her grandmother clean the attic. The space was filled with old trunks, dusty books, and forgotten treasures. As Clara dusted off a wooden chest, she noticed something shining in the corner of the room. She walked over and found a silver key lying on the floor. "Grandma, what's this?" Clara asked, holding up the key. Her grandmother squinted at it and then smiled. "Ah, the silver key. I haven't seen that in years. It belonged to your grandfather. He always said it opened something special, but he never told me what." Clara's curiosity sparked. "Do you think I could find out?" Her grandmother chuckled. "If anyone can, it's you, my clever girl." That evening, Clara examined the key closely. It was old but polished, with intricate engravings of stars and moons. On one side, tiny letters spelled the word Eldergrove. Clara recognized the name as a forest just outside town. The next morning, armed with a flashlight, a notebook, and the key, Clara set off for Eldergrove. The forest was thick and shadowy, with sunlight barely breaking through the canopy. She followed a narrow path until she came to a clearing. In the center stood a large, ancient oak tree with a hollow trunk. Clara felt her heart race as she stepped closer. Inside the hollow was a small, rusty door with a keyhole. Clara's hands trembled as she inserted the silver key and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a staircase that spiraled down into the ground. "Whoa," Clara whispered. She hesitated for a moment but then took a deep breath and started down the steps. At the bottom, she found herself in a circular room filled with glowing crystals. In the center was a pedestal holding a leather-bound book. Clara approached it carefully and opened it. The pages were filled with symbols and sketches, but one page caught her attention. It was a map of Willow Spring with an X marked on a spot near the river. "A treasure map," Clara said aloud, her voice echoing in the chamber. She quickly copied the map into her notebook and climbed back up to the forest. By the time she reached the river, the sun was setting. Clara followed the map's directions to a large rock. She dug around it with her hands until she uncovered a metal box. Inside was a letter, a locket, and a small pouch of gold coins. The letter read, "To the finder of this treasure, you have proven yourself brave and resourceful. The coins are yours to keep, but the locket holds something even more precious, a family secret. Return it to the attic and place it in the chest where the key was found." Excited but puzzled, Clara took the box home. When she placed the locket in the chest, there was a soft click. A hidden compartment opened, revealing another letter and a photograph of her grandparents as young adventurers. The letter said, "Clara, if you're reading this, it means you've followed in our footsteps. The silver key is part of a larger mystery, one that spans generations. Keep searching, and you'll uncover more than you ever imagined. Love, Grandpa." Clara smiled, her mind buzzing with questions and possibilities. She knew this was only the beginning of her adventure. With the silver key in hand, she was ready to unlock the next chapter of her family's story. The end. The next story, The Silver Key. In the quiet town of Willow Spring, 14-year-old Clara lived in a small, cozy house with her grandmother. The two of them shared a love for mysteries and puzzles, often spending evenings solving riddles and reading adventure books. But Clara never imagined she would stumble upon a mystery of her own. One sunny afternoon, Clara was helping her grandmother clean the attic. The space was filled with old trunks, dusty books, and forgotten treasures. As Clara dusted off a wooden chest, she noticed something shining in the corner of the room. She walked over and found a silver key lying on the floor. "Grandma, what's this?" Clara asked, holding up the key. Her grandmother squinted at it and then smiled. "Ah, the silver key. I haven't seen that in years. It belonged to your grandfather. He always said it opened something special, but he never told me what." Clara's curiosity sparked. "Do you think I could find out?" Her grandmother chuckled. "If anyone can, it's you, my clever girl." That evening, Clara examined the key closely. It was old but polished, with intricate engravings of stars and moons. On one side, tiny letters spelled the word Eldergrove. Clara recognized the name as a forest just outside town. The next morning, armed with a flashlight, a notebook, and the key, Clara set off for Eldergrove. The forest was thick and shadowy, with sunlight barely breaking through the canopy. She followed a narrow path until she came to a clearing. In the center stood a large, ancient oak tree with a hollow trunk. Clara felt her heart race as she stepped closer. Inside the hollow was a small, rusty door with a keyhole. Clara's hands trembled as she inserted the silver key and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a staircase that spiraled down into the ground. "Whoa," Clara whispered. She hesitated for a moment but then took a deep breath and started down the steps. At the bottom, she found herself in a circular room filled with glowing crystals. In the center was a pedestal holding a leather-bound book. Clara approached it carefully and opened it. The pages were filled with symbols and sketches, but one page caught her attention. It was a map of Willow Spring with an X marked on a spot near the river. "A treasure map," Clara said aloud, her voice echoing in the chamber. She quickly copied the map into her notebook and climbed back up to the forest. By the time she reached the river, the sun was setting. Clara followed the map's directions to a large rock. She dug around it with her hands until she uncovered a metal box. Inside was a letter, a locket, and a small pouch of gold coins. The letter read, "To the finder of this treasure, you have proven yourself brave and resourceful. The coins are yours to keep, but the locket holds something even more precious, a family secret. Return it to the attic and place it in the chest where the key was found." Excited but puzzled, Clara took the box home. When she placed the locket in the chest, there was a soft click. A hidden compartment opened, revealing another letter and a photograph of her grandparents as young adventurers. The letter said, "Clara, if you're reading this, it means you've followed in our footsteps. The silver key is part of a larger mystery, one that spans generations. Keep searching, and you'll uncover more than you ever imagined. Love, Grandpa." Clara smiled, her mind buzzing with questions and possibilities. She knew this was only the beginning of her adventure. With the silver key in hand, she was ready to unlock the next chapter of her family's story. Over the following weeks, Clara continued her search for answers. She read through her grandfather's old journals, which were filled with notes about secret locations, codes, and artifacts. One entry caught her attention: "The key opens more than just doors. It reveals the unseen and connects the past to the present." Curious, Clara decided to revisit Eldergrove. This time, she noticed something she hadn't seen before: an inscription on the oak tree. It read, "Speak the truth, and the path will appear." Clara hesitated but then said aloud, "I want to know my family's secrets." To her amazement, the ground beneath the tree shifted, revealing another staircase. At the bottom was a second chamber, even larger than the first. This room was filled with ancient artifacts, coins, tools, and scrolls that seemed hundreds of years old. In the center was a pedestal holding another silver key, slightly different from the first. As Clara picked up the key, a voice echoed in the chamber. "Only the worthy may continue. Solve this riddle. I'm not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. What am I?" Clara thought for a moment and then smiled. "Fire." The room lit up as the voice replied, "You are ready." A hidden door opened, revealing a long hallway lined with glowing murals. The murals depicted scenes of her ancestors' adventures, exploring jungles, sailing seas, and solving mysteries. At the end of the hallway was a large book titled The Chronicle of the Silver Key. Clara opened the book and saw her name written on the last page. Below it were the words, "Your journey is just beginning. Carry the key, and let it guide you to the unknown." With a sense of awe and purpose, Clara closed the book and left the chamber. She knew her life would never be the same. The silver key wasn't just a family heirloom, it was her destiny. The end. The next story, The Secret of Willow Creek. In a small town called Willow Creek, life was peaceful. The town was surrounded by green hills and a beautiful river. People knew each other, and everyone was kind. However, there was one mystery that no one could explain. Near the edge of the town, there was an old, abandoned house. People said it was haunted, but no one dared to go inside. 12-year-old Sarah had just moved to Willow Creek with her parents. She was curious and loved adventures. Every day after school, she walked past the old house. Its broken windows and creaky door made it look scary, but Sarah couldn't stop thinking about it. What's inside? She wondered. One Saturday morning, Sarah decided to explore the house. She told her best friend, Jack, about her plan. Jack was nervous. "Are you sure?" he asked. "What if the stories are true?" Sarah laughed. "There's no such thing as ghosts, Jack. It's just an old house." Jack wasn't convinced, but he didn't want Sarah to go alone. "Fine," he said. "I'll come with you." That afternoon, Sarah and Jack stood in front of the house. The wind blew, making the trees sway. The house seemed to whisper, as if it had a voice of its own. Sarah pushed the gate open, and it made a loud creak. "It's just the wind," Sarah said, trying to sound brave. Jack followed her closely as they walked up to the front door. Sarah pushed it open slowly. The door groaned, and a cloud of dust rose into the air. Inside, the house was dark and smelled like old wood. The floor creaked under their feet as they walked through the hallway. They saw old furniture covered with white sheets. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and the walls were cracked. "See? Nothing scary here," Sarah said, though her voice trembled a little. Suddenly, they heard a noise. It sounded like footsteps coming from upstairs. Jack froze. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Sarah nodded. "Maybe it's just an animal," she said, but she wasn't so sure. They slowly climbed the stairs, holding their breath. At the top, they saw a long hallway with several doors. One door was slightly open, and light was coming from inside. Sarah and Jack looked at each other. "Let's check it out," Sarah said. Jack hesitated but followed her. They pushed the door open and gasped. Inside was a small room filled with strange objects. There were old books, bottles with colorful liquids, and a map on the wall. In the middle of the room stood a table with a golden key and a piece of paper. Sarah picked up the paper. It had a message written on it: "To those who find this place, the secret lies beneath. Use the key to unlock the hidden door." Jack pointed to the floor. "Look. There's a trapdoor," he said. Sarah picked up the key and knelt down to unlock the trapdoor. It opened with a loud creak, revealing a dark staircase leading down. "Should we go?" Jack asked, his voice shaking. Sarah nodded. "We've come this far. Let's see what's down there." They climbed down the stairs, holding onto the walls for balance. At the bottom, they found a large underground room. It was filled with gold coins, sparkling jewels, and old treasure chests. Sarah's eyes widened. "This is amazing," she said. Jack looked around in awe. "Who do you think this belongs to?" Before Sarah could answer, they heard a voice behind them. "What are you doing here?" They turned around and saw an old woman standing at the entrance of the room. She had long, gray hair and wore a dark cloak. Her eyes were sharp, but her face was kind. "I'm sorry," Sarah said quickly. "We didn't mean to trespass." The old woman smiled. "It's all right. You are brave to come this far. This treasure belongs to my family. I've been guarding it for many years." Jack asked, "Why is it hidden?" The woman explained, "A long time ago, this town was in danger. My ancestors hid the treasure to keep it safe. Only those with kind hearts and courage can find it." Sarah and Jack felt proud. The woman continued, "You have proven yourselves. As a reward, you may take one thing from the treasure." Sarah and Jack looked at each other. They didn't want to be greedy. Sarah picked up a small, golden locket, and Jack chose a silver coin. "Thank you," they said. The old woman nodded. "Remember, true treasure is not gold or jewels. It is kindness and bravery." Sarah and Jack left the house, their hearts full of excitement. They promised to keep the secret of the treasure and the old woman. From that day on, the abandoned house didn't seem scary anymore. Instead, it became a place of wonder and mystery. And so, life in Willow Creek continued. But Sarah and Jack always remembered their great adventure and the lesson they learned. Courage and kindness can open doors to incredible discoveries. The end. The next story. The Mystery of the Hidden Island. Tom and Emma were best friends who loved solving mysteries. They lived in a small coastal town called Bayview. The town was surrounded by the sea on one side and dense forests on the other. Life was peaceful, but there was one thing that always puzzled the people of Bayview: the story of the hidden island. Legend said there was a mysterious island somewhere in the ocean near Bayview. According to old sailors, the island appeared and disappeared, and it was filled with treasures and secrets. No one had ever been able to find it, but the stories never stopped. Tom and Emma dreamed of finding the island one summer morning. Tom was sitting on the beach with a map in his hands. "Look at this, Emma," he said excitedly. "I found it in my grandpa's attic. He told me it might lead to the hidden island." Emma looked at the map. It was old and faded, but she could see markings that pointed to a spot far out in the ocean. "Do you think it's real?" she asked. Tom nodded. "Only one way to find out. Let's borrow my uncle's boat and go on an adventure." Emma hesitated. "What if it's dangerous?" Tom grinned. "We'll be careful. Come on, Emma. This could be our greatest mystery yet." The next morning, the two friends packed supplies for their journey: water, food, a compass, and the map. Tom's uncle's boat was small but strong, perfect for exploring the sea. They set off early, the sun rising behind them, casting golden light over the water. As they sailed, the ocean stretched endlessly around them. Hours passed, and they began to wonder if the map was just a story. Then, Emma spotted something in the distance. "Tom, look over there," she shouted. Tom turned the boat toward the direction Emma was pointing. As they got closer, they saw the outline of an island covered in mist. It looked like no place they had ever seen before. "We found it," Tom exclaimed. The island was surrounded by sharp rocks and tall waves, but they managed to steer the boat safely to a small, sandy beach. The air was warm, and the island was filled with tall trees, colorful flowers, and strange bird calls. "This place is incredible," Emma said, stepping onto the sand. "But where do we start?" Tom pulled out the map. "It says we need to find the stone arch. Let's look around." They walked through the forest, following a narrow path. The trees were so tall that they blocked the sunlight, and the air was filled with the scent of salt and flowers. After some time, they found the stone arch. It was covered in moss and vines, and it looked ancient. "This must be it," Tom said, pointing to a symbol on the map that matched the arch. Under the arch, they saw a wooden box half buried in the ground. Emma dug it out, and they opened it carefully. Inside the box, there was a golden compass and a note. The note read, "To those who find this compass, follow where it leads. The true treasure lies beyond the horizon." The compass needle spun wildly for a moment before pointing in a specific direction. Tom and Emma exchanged excited looks. "Let's follow it," Emma said. They returned to the boat and set sail again, using the compass to guide them. The journey was long, and the sea grew rougher. Dark clouds gathered, and rain began to fall. "Are you sure about this?" Emma asked, gripping the side of the boat. Tom nodded. "We've come this far. We can't turn back now." After what felt like hours, the rain stopped, and the sky cleared. In the distance, they saw something shining in the water. It was another small island, but this one was different. It glittered in the sunlight as if made of gold. They landed on the shore and found the island was covered in strange, glowing plants. In the center of the island was a cave entrance. Inside, they found a room filled with treasures, gold coins, sparkling jewels, and ancient artifacts. But there was also something else, a book with a leather cover. Tom picked up the book and opened it. The pages were filled with drawings and writings about the hidden island. It told the story of an ancient explorer who had hidden the treasures and created the magical compass to guide only the worthy. Emma said, "This is amazing. But what should we do with it?" Tom smiled. "We'll take the book and share the story. But the treasure should stay here. It's part of the island." They left the treasures untouched and sailed back to Bayview, carrying only the book and the compass. When they returned, they told their story to Tom's grandpa, who was thrilled to hear they had solved the mystery. From that day on, Tom and Emma became local legends. People in Bayview loved hearing about their adventure, and the mystery of the hidden island became a story for the ages. But only Tom and Emma knew the full truth, and they promised to keep the island's treasures safe for generations to come. The end.